welcome to another episode of the DC Comics Chronicles. As always, I'm your host, Adam, and with me is my co-host, the Emerald Enthusiast, Donnie. Donnie?
What's up, comic book fans? It's a man who will rent you a pontoon boat to ride through the confluence. It's the Emerald Enthusiast.
I always wonder, what is he going to say this week? But welcome, Donnie. It's good to be back discussing what's happening in the pages of DC Comics.
Yes.
Now, as the audience can see, or at least the viewing portion of the audience, can see, I am now recently obsessed with backgrounds because on our last Krypton's Legacy, a Superman podcast, which you can find on YouTube and Podbean and iTunes. How did I do there, Donnie, with the pod? Good?
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, good. Our guest co-host, Mario Francisco Robles, had a Fortress of Solitude background. And once I figured out how to add the background, I said, "Wow, I like these backgrounds. I'm gonna put backgrounds." So, but Donnie's got a great his room is a great background. So
yeah,
Donnie doesn't need bringing new backgrounds. So,
I'll put a lot of time into this background.
Yeah, right, exactly. So you might as well show it off. A lot of time and money, so you might as well flaunt it. But we've got three sort of big comics. Well, two bigger ones, two big debuts, and a finale to cover. But before we get there, and I start announcing which comics we're doing, let's do first things first, social media plugs. So after this show, if people think you're absolutely insane and want to call you out on it, where can they do that on social media?
Yes, you can give me heat on Twitter as the Emerald Enthusiast. You can also check out my YouTube channel where I do various comic book related product reviews.
Fantastic. And I recommend following him on social media. He's a great follow. And definitely check out his videos because his product reviews will make you want to buy all those products, or at the very least, do what I want to do, steal them from Donnie himself.
Great.
So one of the two, but I recommend watching nonetheless. All right, and if you want to follow me and be part of my squad to infiltrate Donnie's room, you can do that at Adam_Leafsfan, and we'll come up with a plan. Provided Amanda Waller doesn't have any chips in her heads to do so. Or we could just talk about comics and comic-related media. So at Adam_Leafsfan on Twitter. The link to the Facebook group will be at the bottom of the page somewhere. Click that. Ask for permission to join the group. I will add you. We can continue the conversation there if you like. And the Twitter handle for the podcast network itself is at MMNPDC. So there you go. Follow us both there. And also, just a shout out, just to bug Stephen. Follow Stephen. Ask him about tea, pancakes, coffee. He'll gladly talk about Superman 2. It's at SteveBob1984. Ask him why he still hasn't made Donnie and myself muffins. And see if you can help us out getting those muffins.
That's right.
But all that out of the way, Donnie, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, what have you been reading and watching?
As far as watching, still continuing to make my way through Supergirl, Black Lightning, many of the the remaining Arrowverse shows, WandaVision, obviously. Yeah. And as far as reading, in addition to these comics, which I do want to issue just a little bit of a caveat here. I like to usually read comics through 2, 3, 4 times before I do a podcast. Obviously, these are brand new. So if I make any mistakes or Adam makes any mistakes, obviously we haven't had the time to go back and reread these because they're so new.
Yeah,
we want to cover what's going on with Future State and Infinite Frontier. Also want to shout out, this is one that I didn't think I would pick up, but I got it. This is Vixen. This is Truth and Justice. It's by Jeffrey Thorne, who is taking over Green Lantern. Obviously, that's why I bought it, because I'm getting more of a feel for Jeffrey Thorne's writing, and I wanted to see how he did with this. Not a character that I usually read, but I liked it. I liked it a lot. So,
cool.
Yeah, very cool. So
that's digital as well, right? It's available digitally?
Yeah, available digitally, and this is a variant cover, but I believe the price is $4.99. So, yeah.
I will have to check that out digitally. I'll go to Comixology and pick up whatever issues are there and check it out for sure. Yes. So, what have I been reading?
What have you been reading?
Well, that's a very good question. I have been reading in terms of well, actually, I can pull it out because I actually have it here. It's not actually. You know what? I'm gonna get. Does it have to be? Let me see. It's not DC related, but it is one of my favorite characters, and it led to the creation of, it influenced one of the creation of my other favorite characters, and that's Batman. But the issue I'm going to show you is Zorro, Galleon of the Dead, #3.
Oh wow, yeah, definitely a huge.
I don't know if you can see that.
No, you just disappeared. All I can see is your hand right now. That's awesome.
Anyway,
it's like
so it doesn't work in the background.
You're like disappearing in and out of the Speed Force.
I'm the invisible man. Damn it! There we go.
I love. It reminded me of that scene where, like, Wally was breaking up in the Speed Force and Barry pulled him out. That was awesome. So
I can't show you the cover, but it's cool. Zorro's on the cover. Spoilers. But you were going to say something about Zorro. Definitely, you were saying definitely.
Definitely, huge in the formation of Batman, obviously. Yeah. So. Yeah, anytime you read Zorro, that's
It's funny, it's funny because when I was a kid, I was a fan of Zorro before I was Batman. Like it was roughly around the same time, but I remember seeing Zorro first.
Mm-hmm.
Like my mom we used to have I guess it was Family Channel back then, or whatever.
Probably something along those lines. So.
And they used to have the black and white, the Guy Williams Zorro, the Disney one.
Oh yes, I watched that definitely.
And I'm going to say this is going to upset a lot of people, but listen, I've been upsetting people, depending on who you ask, since I was born, probably. So this is nothing new, but I always say, and part of it's true, in terms of Disney and superheroes, that Zorro show is one of the best things that they've put out. So I love it. So that was the first thing I watched. I remember seeing in terms of superheroes.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's not super powered, so the super part of it is in quotations, but you know what I mean. And then I didn't gravitate away from Zorro, but I gravitated also towards Batman, which then when you read Batman and realize that the night of his parents' death or murder, they went to go see a Zorro film.
Right.
And then it's like you read the story and let's see, both are quite wealthy, both live in mansions. Both have a cave hidden underneath their mansion. Both use a method of transportation that is black. One is a horse, the other is a vehicle, or is a form of a vehicle. So all the similarities, and I just love the character, and so I.
Yeah, you definitely see the influence there. It's very obvious. So
and I used to pick up. Remember not only the '50s show, Donnie, but remember. They had one in the 90s as well. And then it started Duncan Regeer, remember from the Monster Squad? He played Dracula.
Oh, I believe I remember that too, yeah.
And he also plays... So then, I don't know if you know this, but this is a little bit of kind of, well, interesting, but also generally useless information. But to go along with that show, Marvel was publishing at the time comics based on the show. And those were the first comics I ever owned, and I still have them. And they're
interesting, yeah.
And by the way, they're in great condition because I kept good care of my comics. Damn it!
Oh, good for you, man.
and I'm very proud of those. And just brought. When I saw that when I was putting my order in for comics, and I saw that there were new Zorro comics out, I'm like, you know what? I probably don't have much space on my pull list, but I have to. I just couldn't. And I enjoy the story. I'm enjoying the story, so it's cool.
Right.
So that's what I'm reading and watching, because since reading this story, I decided I'm going to go back and revisit the Zorro show from the '50s. So it ties into what I'm reading and watching.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Now, I do not have my comics from when I was a kid because I would read them so many times that I would absolutely wear them out. So the comics I do have, I have repurchased as an adult. So
Well, you know what? The company that's making this Zorro comic is reprinting the issue 1 of the Marvel comic.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, should I get the reprint, even though I have the number 1 really in almost perfect condition? Should I get the reprint?
That way, you can do that, and you can keep reading the reprint, and you don't have to keep putting your fingers on the old one.
Now you've made me accept that I'm going to spend more money. But yeah, okay. All right, there we go. Done. I have no willpower. See, I'd never make it as a Green Lantern, folks. I have 0 willpower. When it comes to spending my money on geek stuff, I got 0. I can't. 0 willpower.
Well, I will tell you, when I go into a comic shop, that's one of the few places where, again, my willpower is tested.
Most people waste money on strip joints. I waste it at the comic store.
Okay.
But that's a whole different podcast.
We're not going to get...
If this was a Zorro podcast, which, let's be honest, I may start one day, it's not another question. I would say from the first Mark of the Z to the last, but it's not, but I just have to get that out there. So there it is. Now we can move on with the actual portion of the show, which is we're going to pick up on Future State Aquaman number 2. We're going to review that. And then we're going to move into the brand new Crime Syndicate number 1. It's a 6-part miniseries. And then we're going to end the show with our review of Infinite Frontier number 0, which is the start of the new era of DC Comics. So
a lot of big revelation there. We're going to save that one for last because there's so much to deal with.
That's the plan, yeah. So let's get right to it. Aquaman, Future State Aquaman number 2. Donnie, what's going on? What's going on with Aquaman?
What's going on with Aquaman? Well, it's really more than just Aquaman. This one centers around, the last issue centered around Jackson Hyde. This one centers around Andy more. It's a lot of the same events that you saw before, but this is from her point of view. And we saw in the last issue that she lost a leg. She was gravely injured. And so we see, and that's, pretty gory for DC. I'm very much impressed with the art, but the story opens up with, it says 6 years ago, Aqua Lass lives. So some of this, in fact, a lot of this is flashback from year to year. So what was your impression of the opening scenes in this?
I do like the structure of it, from year to year. That aspect of it was quite unique. And you're right about the losing a leg part. That is, for a DC book, that's quite grim. And also, it reminds me of those shocking moments, like when Wonder Woman snapped
Maxwell Lord.
Yeah, his neck with the lasso, right?
Yeah.
It was in that vein of, oh my God, I can't believe I just saw that. Right?
Yeah, I mean, you see all the blood that's like kind of in streams throughout the ocean, and she's laying on the beach and she's grabbing her leg and screaming. So
it's very well drawn, though. I mean,
very much
beautiful,
so. Yeah.
Terrifically beautiful, if that's what you want to call it.
Yeah, horrifically beautiful, right?
Yeah. So and then where does what grabbed you next, Don?
She's on the beach and she starts having these interactions with the glimmerfish. Now, that's not something that I know, glimmerfish. Is that something that's been in Aquaman's mythos before?
It's not anything that I've seen before or that I recall. So it may be something new to this story. And could it be something? Could it be a species as a result of what was it called? The confluence?
Yes, the confluence. Yeah. Yes.
Could that have created it, or had a hand in this?
Yeah, it could be.
Of this, because I've never seen it before. So.
No, that's not. And again, I don't always read Aquaman regularly. Yeah. I really wish they were continuing this story. Of course, we talked about it last episode of Comics Corner that they're not going to have an Aquaman book for a while. Has that
Yeah,
changed or anything? Yeah, because I'd like to see, a lot of this continued.
it hasn't changed, but I've noticed that some future state characters are getting their own books as part of the future state timeline. So is that a possibility? I think. Look, Aquaman is going to be back in print
Right. Yeah.
real soon in terms of his own book. It just, what direction do they take? Because when Aquaman 2 comes around, they're going to want to have an Aquaman title
Of course. Yeah.
on the stands. So it's just a matter of time. I definitely want more Aquaman books. So hopefully it's just part of the larger rollout. Because we've heard news that Supergirl is getting a 6-issue, or is it 6 or 8-issue miniseries?
Mm-hmm.
It's called Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, written by Tom King.
Right.
Which normally I'd be rolling my eyes, but after reading Batman and Catwoman, I'm kind of willing to give him another. I'm liking that story so much that I'm willing to give him another go. So I mean, and
yeah, you just like it when Batman and Catwoman are together. The Bat Cat Forever.
Well, no. Listen, I'm not. I've fired co-hosts in the past, Donnie. You and Steven like to push my buttons. You're gonna. I'm kidding. No.
Hey, poser.
But he's. Listen, I gotta give him credit. 4 issues into that, he's impressed me. So I'll give the Supergirl run a shot. And listen, not to disparage anyone, but I really didn't like the Future State Supergirl. So anything could be an improvement on that, in my opinion. So
okay.
The character deserves a good run. It's been lacking for her, but that has nothing to do with Aquaman. So
let's get back to this. We actually see Andy's leg be healed in a very magnificent image of. Now I was a little confused. I'm like, was it the Glimmerfish themselves, I think, or was it like they're using part of the water to like repair her leg and give her this leg? What was your impression there?
I kind of hope that it's them using the water, because it would kind of mimic, not in the same fashion, but remember when Aquaman had that water hand?
Yes. Yeah.
It would. I mean, it's not the same thing, but her leg being from the water would kind of be a nod to Aquaman's history, and I kind of dig that. So that's the way I'm choosing to interpret it. Now I could be way off. We may have to tweet the artist and see what he thinks. So yeah, but that's how I interpret it.
Regardless, I really like that imagery of her being, having one of her limbs from the ocean. I thought that was really cool.
Donnie, you're going to get to see a lot of this artist's imagery when we start covering Action Comics, because he's taking over Action Comics. So a lot more beautiful imagery to look at coming up. And that's exciting.
Yeah, I definitely like the art. We will, of course, rate when we get toward the end, but I really like that. So again, now this goes into flashback mode, and we see Andy and Jackson together, and it says lesson hunting. So we see them presumably, 6 years before, and they're learning to hunt without their powers.
Right. Yeah. No, I like that each part of this, let's call it mini chapter of this issue, is them learning a lesson and them furthering their prowess as heroes, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's that's a very good, like I commented earlier, that's great for the story, because when you're dropped in to the future state timeline, these people are already the heroes they've become in most cases. So you never got to see that hero's journey, where now we're seeing the hero's journey, which I really like.
Right. And you actually see that, obviously, she wasn't good at it in the past. You see her kind of snapping a bow as she tried to pull it back. Yeah. But
not everybody could be Green Arrow, right? So.
Oh, well, yeah, exactly. So.
Unless you're on the Arrow show and you learn it through osmosis.
Right.
And then everybody can be,
Right. How good are you at bow hunting?
Oh, I'm an expert. I mean, I just look at Stephen Amell and I picked up right away. I was like, okay. I'm like Roy. I know how to do it. All right, good, let's go.
Oh, there you go. Well, Andy, it seems here, did learn her lesson, because we see her back in the present, because you do see the ocean enhanced leg, and you see that she's caught her dinner and she spitted it and is roasting on a fire. Again, another powerful image there. So.
I mean, like I said, I know it's impossible, but if I could, I'd have this artist draw as many of the DC characters as he could possibly draw. Because he's just... I mean, it's only 2 issues, but the more we see of it, if he keeps this kind of quality up on Action Comics, he may quickly catapult him into my top 10 favorite artists.
Yeah.
Quite quickly. It's quite possible.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this, too. The next panel, too, it flashes back, and we see Jackson and Andy together again. They're confronted by these, turtle people, and those are just magnificently drawn.
It was. And again, I think doing a book like Aquaman really can stretch your... Not stretch, but showcase your talent as an artist, because imagine all the monsters, the creatures, the sea creatures you have to draw, in addition to Aquaman and superheroics. So there's so much that you can draw working on Aquaman that I really think it's a showcase. It really is a showcase of an artist's capabilities, much like Green Lantern with all the constructs, right?
Oh yes, that was one of the things that originally attracted me to Darryl Banks, was because he was able to do the constructs like that.
Yeah.
And by the way, you can listen to us on the Emerald Echo talk about Green Lantern on iTunes and Podbean.
Yeah, very special episode coming up very soon.
Exactly.
There's been a little bit of a delay with Emerald Echo because I wanted to save this particular episode for a specific point in time.
Right.
And it's nearing. I sound like the Grim Reaper there, but that's not how I meant it to sound. But yeah, it's going to be exciting.
There you go. Sound like Necron. Just threaten everybody.
Yeah, there it is.
But flashing back again, it says lesson, and I really liked how it said this here. Instead of hand-to-hand combat, it said lesson, throw hands. And you see Andy and Jackson training together underwater in hand-to-hand combat, and she's throwing punches very quickly.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
When your parents are Aquaman and Mira, by default, you better be, at some point, you better grow into that badass role, because if you don't, then it's on you, because you've got the genes to to really take up that mantle and be a powerhouse in the DC universe.
For me, this is a nice change of pace, because I like the backdrops. I'm so used to being a cosmic reader of cosmic titles, to see like all this aquamarine life and all of the water backdrops. I really just like how that looks. That's again, it's very different for me. It's a departure as to what I usually read. So.
Yeah, and I think expanding into more DC characters as we're going to be doing, outside of our Green Lantern reviews, it's just going to give you so much. Even you'll see different focuses, in different books and from different artists.
Yeah.
And then when we do go back to the spacefaring Green Lantern stuff, I think it'll make that, it'll double that wow factor when you go back to it, because stepping away from that for a bit and then going back to it is like, oh, well, it's like being up in space and seeing it for the first time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it'll have that effect, and given the artist that's coming on Green Lantern, oh boy. Oof.
Yeah. But, so back in the present, we see that Andy's defending herself on the beach with a great sidekick, by the way. She, and I don't mean like a sidekick as in a character. I mean as
an actual sidekick.
An actual sidekick. And so she's obviously learned these lessons. You see the correlation between the lesson in the past and how she's using it in the present.
Yeah.
So... yeah, and she was like, back off, you stupid frogs, hands off all my stuff. And yeah, she is she's taking them out. So, yeah. So back in the past, we see the lesson is perseverance. So what was your impression of the perseverance thing?
Like I said, I really like this, because this issue, we see our heroes really being put through their paces, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's just refreshing, because unless you're Um, unless you're reading an origin story, like Batman Year One or Secret Identity, Superman Secret or something of that nature. We don't, when you're reading the DC universe consistently, you're often getting your heroes are established. They've been doing this for years. I love that we're getting this ground up sort of approach to Aquaman and Aqualass and all that stuff, because every time that I've come into Aquaman, they've never really. I mean, Jeff Johns' run kind of did flashbacks, but it's never been from the ground up. It's always he already knows what he's doing. The flashbacks are just there to.
Yeah, this is very much from the ground up.
Yeah, so, this is like the in terms of this is like the Batman Begins of this version of Aquaman, where you're very much getting, and the fact that a lot of it's happening in issue 2, as opposed to issue 1. I think again it goes to the clever aspect of the story's setup.
Right. Well, we see back on the beach that everything that she has set up to kind of exist on the beach, that gets destroyed by a tidal wave, and so she's back in the ocean, and she's intent on going and rescuing Jackson. So then we see another flashback, and by the way, I really love this image and it says lesson patience, and you see the two of them on like mountaintops, and she's doing like a martial arts, like a crane pose almost, and he's meditating. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah. And again, you see her back in the present, and she is swimming along. And so I really like how that kind of goes back and forth. You kind of have to make sure that you're paying attention, because the only kind of cue that you're going to get visually is the leg. So, yeah, it's easy to get confused here, but if you pay attention, this is a really great story.
That's the only kind of caution that I would give, is that kind of story framing, if you're not used to it or you're not expecting it, it could be confusing. It could be construed as like, I wouldn't blame somebody if they got confused.
Right. And we see a couple panels here where they give you very quick flashbacks. She's going through the confluence, and it's 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 1 year ago. And a lot of different, again, you see the frog people, you see some kind of apes, her kind of flying on this giant shark-like thing. It's very interesting. And
when you describe it, it's kind of like one of those horror movies, like a B horror movie, as you describe it. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. But you finally see her. She comes to this Neptune's most fortified deep sea prison, and that's where we see that Jackson has been held for 6 years, and it says Aquaman lives, and he's obviously being tortured. He's obviously being imprisoned, but she smashes her way in, and there's a very kind of brutal fight. But I really like how, and of course, I like the image of her smashing into the prison, and it says Aquawoman returns.
Yeah, and that fight scene, the rescue scene, as I call it, I think that's really that's the culmination of all the lessons that we've seen them go through. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the payoff.
Yeah.
And you're right, it was brutal, but man, was it so fun to read and watch play out.
Right. Like, and we're not done with the lessons either, because it says lesson vengeance.
Yeah.
And of course, she's angry that her brother has been held for 6 years.
Yeah.
And she is just she is taking it out on his captors.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm going to kill them all. I'm not going to let them get away for what they did. Yeah. And this is my favorite line in the whole comic.
Yeah.
Where he says, "Break them all the way down, but leave them alive so they remember who did it. Don't kill them, but let them know that you're the one who broke them all the way down." I thought that was just
because he even says we don't do that. We don't, referring to killing.
Right.
It's like we don't do that.
Yeah, so, that's the lesson of restraint. That's what that panel says.
And again, it's like, if you're gonna, I prefer all things be in certain circumstances. I understand if it happens, but I prefer when my heroes don't kill because, again, with the exception of like the Punisher or somebody of that nature, you know, there's something to be said about that restraint and how not going to that level if it can at all be avoided.
Well, and it wasn't necessary in this instance.
Yeah,
so,
it makes our characters stand above the villains they fight.
Right.
Whereas if you're just going to kill just because you can, okay, you may be killing a really evil individual, but doesn't that kind of devalue what you're doing a little bit because you've not made yourself judge, jury, and executioner? So, yeah, so I really appreciate that aspect of it was in there.
Yeah.
It's not a no killing rule like Batman, but the principle is there that look, if we can avoid, if there's no need to do it, then don't do it.
Yeah, and then again, we see this, after they escape, we see this tearful reunion.
Yeah.
A lot of beautiful imagery there at the end, and them swimming through the confluence. So,
and even if you don't read the words, the imagery sells the emotion. I mean, that emotional embrace was probably in a book full of amazing pages. That had to be some of my favorite work of the issue.
Yeah, and I will say this too. I really thought that the art sold the narrative. You weren't like inundated with so much dialogue that it hindered the storytelling in any way. It really the dialogue correlated to what you were seeing very well, and it kept 100%. The pace going. Yes.
Yeah, 100% agree. Is there anything else you want to add, or you want to rate this?
No, like I said, I'm sad that we're not getting an issue 3. I would like it to keep going, but
let's hope there's more on the horizon.
Right. From the first issue to the last.
Indeed. Well done.
Right. Now, I was going to say, are you going to fire me for co-opting your catchphrase?
No, if it's done well, I applaud it. If it's butchered, then, we got problems. But,
okay.
But, yeah, so as we do with comics, 5 for story and 5 for art. So what would you rate it?
Oh, 5 and 5. I love this issue. 5 and 5.
For me, it's 5 across the board. It's perfect. Great finale. It wraps things up, but leaves you wanting more. And that's exactly, in my opinion, what a good finale should do. So.
Right. So awesome. Now we are on to Crime Syndicate. Welcome to Earth 3. It's a limited series, 1 of 6.
Yeah.
And this is a group of supervillains that I've always liked, by the way. Obviously, they're kind of an analog of the Justice League, and kind of a negative mirror version of the Justice League.
Yeah, they're yeah, exactly. You think about it in Star Trek terms. They're the Mirrorverse version of the Justice League, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Great start, though. I love the fact that we're basically getting an origin issue for the Crime Syndicate. An origin series, because as the book starts, they operate separately. I mean, they don't even fully come together by the end of the issue.
Yeah,
they're separate entities. So we are in fact seeing their origin story. And the reason why this is a number 1 through number 1 of 6 is because this is obviously taking place in the context of the events that happen in the Dark Knight's what is it, Metal?
Yeah, Death Metal. This
Death Metal, yeah.
This picks up on events that were solidified in Death Metal. It says a new multiverse was forged and new worlds born and reborn. So you see that this is kind of an upside down world, because it even says where Benedict Arnold was a founding father of the United States, for international listeners, of America spelled with a K, and tyranny reigns. A world where good does not always triumph in the end. Welcome to New Earth 3.
kind of almost sounds like the last 4 years for you guys.
let's not go there. Yeah, I thought I had that thought too. Oh boy. Oh.
So I couldn't. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
It hit a little too close to home, but yeah. This story is called "The New Deal Part 1: Strange Visitor." So.
Right. I really like the scene where they did the whole revisit of the JFK shooting with a twist.
Very much a twist. Obviously, it shows America celebrating because he was assassinated because he was a tyrant, which is obvious. Yeah.
And, yeah, but who is he? The fun thing is, not the fun thing, but the interesting is it's not fun watching somebody get assassinated. But so it's the wrong choice of words. But the interesting thing is who assassinated him.
It's Ultraman as a child. That is, I guess, Ultra Child.
It would be Kal-El of Earth 3.
Right.
The whole opening scene gives me Brightburn movie vibes, which
Yeah. Well, and it even takes place on Elm Street, so there's another horror movie nod right there.
and because remember when Brightburn was coming out, I kept telling everybody. To me, when I look at it, this is just Ultraman.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I would call that movie the Ultraman movie.
Yeah.
Right. So, but yeah, that was kind of interesting, and I like the fact that we got to spend a little bit of time with each one of our crime syndicate members.
Right.
So,
well, again, it flashes forward with into Metropolis, and it says he watches you. Yeah. So Ultraman is definitely ruling with an iron fist at this point.
Where Superman protects, this guy watches, and if you say anything negative about him, he property damage is not accidental like it was in Man of Steel. It's purposeful because you see him throw the newspaper truck through the Daily Planet window.
Yeah, he goes after the Daily Planet. He burns up one of the papers with his heat vision, and then he throws a truck into the Daily Planet.
Yeah, because Kat is the editor, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he doesn't like the way she's writing about him.
Yeah.
Or talking about him, so he isn't too happy, and he takes it out on the paper and her by doing that.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of Brightburn, as far as horror goes, the image you see of him as he kind of floats into the Daily Planet with his eyes glowing red, man, does he look scary.
Yeah, and the art really works in this issue.
Oh, yes.
The art is really good. Then we get a little bit of I forgot what her name is, the Wonder Woman analog.
Oh, you talk Superwoman. Superwoman. Yes.
But in this universe, is it Donna Troy? Is that? Am I right?
Yeah, I believe it was. We're not there yet. We're still on. Yeah. He's confronting Cat Grant, and she threatens him with this world's protector is Alexander Luthor.
Bro, yeah.
Yeah.
So crap's hit the fan in this universe when Alexander Luthor, when a Luthor is the hero.
Right.
Like stuff is backwards when he's.
Yeah. And what's interesting? We just talked about at the top of the show where you're like, yeah, does this hit close to home? He actually uses the phrase "fake news." He's like, run more fake news about me, and I'll kill your entire staff, even the janitors. So yeah, Ultraman doesn't play around.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not. And yeah, it's always interesting to see that different spin on Lex. So we'll see how that plays out when we actually see him. I'm assuming we'll see him.
Yes.
We don't in this issue, but
yeah,
I'm assuming he'll appear.
Well, yeah, and it cuts to the White House, and you were talking about Superwoman. She has this world's version of Oliver Queen. That's President Queen. Yeah, the president. And she has him tied up, and he's upside down.
Yeah, and she was extracting whatever information she wanted from him.
Yeah.
She clearly had him under her control. luckily, some agents busted in because
Mhm.
I had a feeling some weird kinky stuff was going to go down had they not. No, well, just by the way it was written, that's where I'm
Yeah.
like, where's this going? Because it seems like it's going somewhere where I have to double check the rating on the book. I'm like, what is
Yeah,
this?
it would have gone somewhere not PG. So anyway,
Right.
so after that, the scene cuts to Coast City, and we're treated to an interesting exchange here where a civilian's kind of getting accosted by a cop, and the guy says, he gives him heat over his hoodie, and he says, "You dress like a hoodlum, you get treated like a hoodlum." And I'm like, "Hey, I have lots of hoodies."
You know what? You know the sad fact is, this book looked a lot more like our real world
Yeah, then
than
yeah,
I, than
too
I
close for
want
comfort. Yeah,
than I care to admit. Like
yeah,
that's the sad fact about it is that you'll see. Unfortunately, we've seen police behave like this.
right. Well, and this part of the story features, surprise, surprise, my favorite character in the crime syndicate, which is Power Ring. Yeah.
Really, I'm shocked by that, Donnie. I would have never guessed that would be your.
Well, and this in particular, this is the Jon Stewart version of Power Ring. We've seen other Power Rings in the past,
Yeah, Jessica
including Hal
Cruz.
and Jessica. Yeah, yeah. Uh,
And
but
he
yeah,
was a cop in this universe at one
yeah,
point.
yeah. It was, and he actually mentions that here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
That
this
I was
obviously
finished.
this Jon Stewart is not above killing because he kills both the cop and the civilian.
Yeah,
Both
he's
of
like,
you, he says, both of you stand accused, theft for one and preying on the weak for the other. And he just kind of just murders them straight out.
basically, you both suck. I'm taking you both out. That's essentially what it.
Yeah,
Uh, you know what? As bad as that comes across when you say he essentially incinerates the both of them. I think he's the most heroic of the bunch. Like he doesn't do anything.
well, he brings them up and drops them kind of
Right, I mean,
mercilessly.
right, but
Yeah,
they're both.
yeah,
One is accused of doing bad things. The other one
sure.
is doing bad things. So realistically, what you see him do is basically handle two bad people that have been accused of doing.
Yeah.
So really, of all the characters, he still remains the most heroic at this point.
Right. Although, yeah, obviously it's overkill
Yeah.
because, like I
Oh,
say,
absolutely. Oh,
he
yeah.
just executes them. But
Oh,
it's
yeah.
interesting too. He says, "By the power vested in me by the overlords of Oa." So it's not the Guardians; it's the overlords.
Which again, in later stories, they
Yeah.
became kind of like overlords the way they were behaving. So,
Right. Yeah.
you know what I really liked about this issue, Donnie, is where um, they kept where they had editor's notes
Mm-hmm.
and see this story, and it would be an inverse of a story that we've read, and then it said "coming never."
Right.
I always found that because I'm like, oh, there's going to be big spin-offs, and then I'm like, "coming never." I'm like, oh,
Never
that's just rude.
Yeah. I do like the changes in perspective here because you see him giving the thumbs down and you see the faces of both the cop and the civilian getting ready to drop,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
obviously with terrified looks on their faces, and
yeah,
so it's a lot of powerful imagery there.
yeah.
So I also like the way his costume was drawn.
Yeah, and he looked great. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
The artist really did a good job with him. He was one of my favorite drawn
yeah,
of the bunch.
yeah.
And
And
then
so yeah, go ahead, sir.
then we move on from that to
So the scene shifts to Central City. Yeah. And yeah, so we see Quick
yeah,
and a brutal image here too of someone has been murdered with a crowbar, and you see like the person's blood streaked on the crowbar.
yeah. That was disturbing.
Yeah, and yeah, so this is Atomica, and yeah, very disturbing imagery here, but this kind of cuts back to, again, a number of different things happening. And what was the name of that beast that like attacked them all at one point? What was it called? It kind of looked like Starro, but it wasn't Starro.
It was the star of that universe. I can't remember what it was called though.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't recognize the name of it originally.
I do like that it is though a Starro that's bringing them all together because it's
Well, that's
what
fitting.
what brought the Justice
The
League.
original Justice League, yeah, Justice League of America.
Right, yeah. So I like that parallel.
Yeah.
I got to be honest. I think this Flash analog is my least favorite of the characters.
Yeah, I can see where you say that. Yeah.
He doesn't resemble the Flash as much.
Yeah. And I do see, here it does say it does say Starro, so I missed that the first time around, but I recognize Starro obviously. So yeah.
So the look of him to me is off. Not because of the artist. I've never liked his look in the past. So he was probably my least favorite character of the bunch.
So after Ultraman fights off Starro, then we see the scene shift to Gotham City, where we see Owlman, who's another character I really like, by the way.
Yeah. And this would be the interesting fact. There's two facts here. Whereas in the regular Batman books, it's the Bat family that protects Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
In this, it's the Court of Owls that patrols Gotham.
Yeah, he talks about the Talons.
The Talons, exactly. Which is part of the Court of Owls. Yeah. They're like the muscle of the Court of Owls, right? Right, and
you talked about Batman's no-kill rule. Owlman does not have that.
Oh, absolutely
that same rule. Yeah, he snaps the guy's neck right away.
Owlman goes full Man of Steel.
Yeah.
and just snaps the guy's neck. Now, first of all, I love Owlman's look, like the visual look of him.
Oh yes.
Is menacing. Like, obviously by his actions he's a villain, but just look-wise, you could pass him off as a hero. Like if you saw Owlman and you didn't know anything about him, you'd say, "Oh, well, that
Oh yeah.
Right?
He actually calls himself a bird of prey at one point, though.
Yeah, which is a nod to obviously owls are a bird of prey, but
bird
also
of prey, yeah.
Birds of Prey in terms of the title, the comic title.
Yeah. At least we didn't see him in Harley Quinn booty shorts. Yeah, I wouldn't have enjoyed that so much.
Well, him, no. If we would see more of Harley like that, then sure. But no, yeah. And listen, I may be biased, but it is what it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Listen, there's one reason why I went to see the Dukes of Hazzard remake, and it's Jessica Simpson as what's her name, Daisy Duke, whatever.
Yeah, I believe it was Daisy Duke. You're talking. Yeah. I watched that when I was a kid, but I mean,
But I've never
watched the reruns.
That's why I went to see the remake of that movie. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. The real interesting thing for me that they kept this the same, even though this is a reboot of the Crime Syndicate. That Thomas Wayne is the man under the cowl, not Bruce.
Right.
And the Alfred we see is a throwback to the early incarnation of Alfred, like look-wise. So, Stephen, when you read this book, you'll see a very different version of yourself in this story.
And I like the fact, too, that Owlman says he doesn't want, like, video and facts of himself out there. He says, I want fable and folklore, not facts.
Yeah, and it reminds me of 1989's Batman, where, he literally says, I want you to tell all your friends, like he does the line.
He wants this aura out there and this mystery. Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
So I got Batman 89 callbacks, which is always a good thing for me.
Yeah.
I loved his intro. And then again, it seems like we're all going to get, that was the last member introduced, right?
Yes.
So it seems like at some point, I mean, they're all going to interact, and they're all going to, because now, there was a report, and I think one of them was talking about the other in other cities, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was John Stewart that mentioned it.
Yeah. So
they're becoming aware of each other, and now it's going to be fun to see them interact.
Well, in fact, it says, what does it say? Ultraman versus Superwoman next. So that's the next story that we're going to see as far as this continuity.
Sometimes when our heroes first meet, they don't get along.
Hmm.
Imagine how that's going to be amplified when they're villainous.
Right. Because both of those are very merciless characters.
Yeah, there's going to be some property damage. I'm just going to point that out.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the end of that issue. Mm-hmm. So Donnie,
actually, there is a backup story.
Let's bring. We won't go in detail about it, but we'll mention it. It's essentially the Superman origin for Ultraman.
For Ultraman, yeah.
And what I liked about it the most was the fact that, when he's going through, Doom Planet, scientists trying to save their kid, and then, what do you call them? Duplicitous ingrate, like when they showed the Kents, it's like duplicitous ingrates or something like that. That was the monologue, and I couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah. What you see in the story is they're revealing to him who he is when he's a child, and he does not take it well. I mean, this is... He reacts very negatively, and he basically steals the ship and leaves them. So
and but also, I don't blame him, because this version of the Kents weren't the kind, warm couple. They were they were borderline pricks, and used him as child labor essentially.
Yeah, and they have the gall to say, after all we've done for you.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this is Brightburn.
Yeah. Oh, very much so. Without you take away the mask, and I mean, this very much looks like that. So
so I really liked it. The origin kind of wrap up for that.
He calls them a couple of freeloaders. So
that's another name he uses. And the art by David Finch. Oh man, that guy can draw anything.
And it says next the Paranoid Titan.
Who's that going to be?
I'm assuming they're talking about him.
Oh, it's going to continue his story. Okay, I see.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I really liked the backup. Yeah. So, I mean, but it was your typical Superman origin, but inverted, with him not loving the Kents the way Clark does.
Right, and them obviously not having a strong family bond overall. So
yeah, they're not your stereotypical Midwestern family. They're anything but.
Right. So, yeah, it was an interesting take to see that again. And for people who may not be familiar with the Crime Syndicate, a good entry point.
Oh, this is the perfect book to jump on, for sure.
Yeah.
If you've never heard of them or are very unfamiliar, this is it. This is great. So, I guess out of 5 for story and art?
I'm going to say 4 and 4.
I'm going to say 4 and 4.5.
Okay.
4 for story, 4.5 for.
Yeah, not really counting the backup because it's so short. So.
Right, but I will say, from what we saw, if I had to rate it, I'd give it a 5 across the board for the backup. Yeah. So yeah.
All right.
Definitely recommend. Pick that one up.
Definitely a fun read. Yeah.
All right. So the big main event of the week for DC was Infinite Frontier number 0. So
Infinite Frontier number 0, and I need to point out there are many stories in this. This is
Let's go through them more broadly instead of like the general of each story, and then we'll talk about it. Instead of.
Well, but let me just point out that so people have an idea of where we're going. We get Justice League, Batman, Superman, Green Arrow and Black Canary, Wonder Woman, Wonder Girl, Stargirl, Green Lantern, Alan Scott, Teen Titans Academy, and The Flash.
Yeah.
And then an epilogue.
Yes.
With many different writers. I mean, this is a powerhouse issue.
Yeah, it's essentially an all-star team of DC creators, basically.
Yeah.
Like, there's too many names to I mean, the architect is probably Joshua Williamson on writing. Mm-hmm. He seems to be the driving force of the new era of DC.
Yeah, but when this book opens up, it's a lot of again, kind of cosmic, mystic energy, and we see that Wonder Woman, that she's standing before all these extremely powerful characters from the DC universe called the Quintessence.
Yes.
And
that's a Guardian.
Yeah, and the Phantom Stranger and the Spectre and Highfather and a couple more, and they're basically offering her a membership, a place within the Quintessence.
Yeah, so they would be like the Watchers of the Marvel Universe, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. She even says that at one point, is what, would I not influence anything? I would just kind of stay back and watch. And that's what they do. So
yeah. And she's hesitant because she feels there's a great... I mean, at this point, Wonder Woman is kind of... I don't want to say dead, but in between.
Yeah. I actually didn't know. The first image I saw of her, she's dressed in all white or all gray, and I didn't know who it was at first.
She's almost at a point where if she chooses to stay and take up this position, she'll be dead. Mm-hmm. And, an entity in that respect. Or if she chooses to not stay, then she'll go back to the land of the living. So she's kind of in that in between. She's kind of in purgatory. If you think of death and heaven and earth. And
right.
That's kind of where she is.
And that's how this issue is able to move around. You see various characters in various settings. They're watching from this kind of, ethereal plane.
Yeah. So she's worried about a threat. Mm-hmm. And before she makes a decision, she wants to make sure about this threat, whether it's a thing or not. So that's what she asks of the Spectre. Mm-hmm. So that's the impetus of the issues.
Yes.
They're looking in on her compatriots to try and find this threat.
Right. And the first one that we see is Superman. And this, by the way, I want to do mention the art was by Jamal Igle, I believe, who's a favorite of mine. I really did like the art.
Was it the Shazam story first or the Black?
No, it was Superman who's the first. Well, Superman, and they talk about Black Adam.
He's in it, but yeah, that's the Justice League one.
Yeah. Okay, all right. So yeah, I was getting confused there. Yeah, so you do see Shazam. Well, they mentioned Shazam.
But Black Adam, yeah.
Black Adam. They called him Shazam.
Okay, now, let's address that.
That's wrong because that's your name.
No. But there was a big hoopla online. Oh, DC's changing the name of Black Adam to Shazam. No, that's not what's happening. What's happening is simply a website got a hold of a preview issue, saw that line of dialogue, and assumed, hey, DC's changing the name, when all it is a foreign character, not English, right? Hmm. Has appropriated that name for Black Adam because the symbol that he wears is the one of Shazam, and he says to turn into Black Adam, he says Shazam.
Right.
And I'm assuming that when she ran into Black Adam, he called himself Adam. So she gave him the name of Shazam, but nobody said he's officially you don't see Black Adam say, no, don't call me that. Call me, he doesn't say call me that.
Right.
It's a character assuming that that's what he's called.
Well, and they mentioned in this story that he doesn't say very much. The woman says, he's kind of like you, strong, quiet.
Yeah.
He helps and leaves.
So I think a lot of that was blown out of proportion, so I'll just say that.
Yeah.
But it's setting the stage for that he's going to be part of it sets the stage that he's going to be part of the team.
Right. And we also see the Flash show up in this story, and he questions what's going on, and Superman says, well, maybe this is who he wants to be now, meaning Black Adam. Maybe he wants to be a hero. And my favorite line of this story is the Flash, and the Flash is like, you think that about everyone. You think the best about everyone.
And that's the best part about Superman.
Right. Yeah, that's a huge defining characteristic.
Yeah.
In fact, the Flash even says, "Oh, to be you," to be as optimistic as you are. So yeah. So, which is something that now the issue immediately contrasts Batman with Superman, obviously there because Batman is definitely not always an optimist, and the scene cuts to Gotham City, and in particular Arkham Asylum, and a lot of great panels here from like up in the sky looking down on the buildings. I really liked how they drew those.
Yeah, they captured the essence of Gotham City and the look of Gotham City perfectly.
Yeah,
And I've always said that the best Batman stories make Gotham City as much of a character as people
that's a
that
good point.
inhabit the city. So that was well done. And the big takeaway from this story is that there is a bomb. They're basically Bane via the Joker sets off a bomb within Arkham Asylum
Mm-hmm.
that basically kills everybody except for 17 people.
Right.
Um,
Including Bane dies in this. You see, kind of a Jokerized Bane who's
yeah.
chained to the wall, and
Yeah.
that's what a gruesome image that was.
It was very disturbing, but again, beautifully disturbing.
Yes.
And so the key here is that the person responsible, or seemingly behind, or that's going to rise from the ashes of this chaos, is Scarecrow.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's going to have a lot of. He's going to be the next big bad in the Batman books, and I got to say, this version of Scarecrow looks absolutely horrifying in a good way.
Yes.
In a good way.
Yeah.
And the other cool part was Batman, because what we're seeing now in Gotham is the start of this idea of anti-vigilantes, specifically anti-mask wearing vigilantes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that puts Batman at odds with even the cops. Because he arrives on the scene, scans the scene and says there's 17 people that survived. I'm going to go save them. The cops try to prevent him from going in. And he says, listen, you can shoot me in the back. Otherwise, I'm going in.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really the take. Like, it's really what these few pages do is set up where, in particular, the Batman title is going. And I think it's going to be fascinating.
Right.
Seeing Scarecrow get some prominence and seeing the fallout from this chaos and knowing that this is what could potentially lead to the events of Future State,
Mm-hmm.
I think we're in for a fascinating run on Batman here.
Yeah. I really like, and you do see a number of other heroes here, including Oracle, Batwoman, Huntress. You do see Jace.
Yeah,
and
Oracle is back. Oracle is back. Barbara is back as Oracle, and now there are two Batgirls, both Stephanie and Cassandra.
Mm-hmm.
And Huntress is there, so maybe we're going to get, like, I'm hoping this leads to a reformed Birds of Prey book.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Like, again, I think part of the reasons why characters don't have books yet is because they haven't been announced. But I think more rollout is coming. It's just going to be staggered.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's certainly the world of Gotham is going to, I think, expand again. We're going to get Birds of Prey back in a book, which is nice. And I think I've read rumors about a Batgirl's book.
Interesting.
Both Stephanie and Cassandra. So yeah, we'll see where that goes.
So another line that I like here, though, is before the scene cuts to Themyscira, you see Wonder Woman again, and it says that the Spectre is telling her, "You remain tethered to your old life, but soon that connection will be severed. You will see life for what it really is." And she says, "And what is that?" And he says, "Nothing more than a vestibule." So a very kind of small, short period of time. I really thought that was powerful.
Yeah.
So, but then the scene cuts to Themyscira with a lot of really beautiful art here of the Amazons kind of fighting for who's going to be the new Wonder Woman with Diana gone.
Yeah, and I like how the story makes you think that it's going to be Nubia, because that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But then there's a big switch that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Which is?
Well, which thing are you talking about there?
The big switch with when Queen Hippolyta comes back and basically tells Nubia, I'm not putting anybody else at risk.
Oh, right. She does say that, yeah.
And so she decides that she's going to be the Amazonian representative on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And Nubia will take her place as queen.
Queen, yeah. And they also mentioned, trying to investigate Yara Flor.
Yes. Because we know a Wonder Girl book is coming. So.
Right. Yeah.
But this now explains why Queen Hippolyta is a member of the Justice League.
Mm.
I find it fascinating.
Yeah.
Because...
And that doesn't mean that, Nubia is still going to be prominently featured in DC's.
Well, I'd
future,
assume that she's in the Wonder Woman book, right? Like she'll be, when they featured the Amazons, she'll be the queen. So,
yeah.
So she'll definitely have a place for sure.
Speaking of Yara, we do get a couple pages of her.
Yeah. I'm so looking forward to that book.
I definitely see this appealing to, teenagers and people in their early 20s. And, it appeals to me too, but you don't get a whole lot of Yara in this book.
No. But given how they set her up in Future State, I'm definitely intrigued to at least check out Wonder Girl to start.
Yeah.
Give it a shot and see how it goes,
Most definitely. I found everything about this issue intriguing. The various the
setups.
Yeah, the setups for the various characters. Now the scene after we see Yara, we see the scene shift to Battery Park, New York. We see kind of the spirits of Wonder Woman and the Spectre, and we get a very interesting scene here. And this is the Justice. We see the where the Justice Society of America used to meet, and it's a scene with some of my favorite characters, one being Alan Scott, Jade being one of my favorite female characters in any comic, and Obsidian. And what you see here is Alan admitting to his children that he was gay all along. What was your impression?
It was very short. There was no action whatsoever.
No.
But it was so heartfelt, and it felt so honest and legitimate. Like, they didn't trivialize the moment by making it so easy to roll off the tongue.
No, he obviously was struggling, and in fact, Obsidian is like, you're getting caught up in the preamble, just say it.
But they also didn't make it like some horror. Like, I get his trepidation, and I think largely because he's been living a lie for that long, right?
Right.
That it would be difficult, but they didn't make, some people, when you hear about their story, it's almost the worst thing you think it's the worst thing in the world. They don't play it as overly one way or the other. There's a good balance of being trepidatious, but also the positivity coming out of the other side.
Right. And Jade embraces him, and I do want to make the point here that yes, Alan's come out before, but that was the Earth 2 version.
Yes.
And the New 52. This is the classic Martin Nadell version that has come out to his children.
Yes.
So
yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
I love the art in this short couple of pages. And listen, DC, in terms of books that I hope is part of an announcement at some point, I got 3 letters for you. JSA. Give us a JSA book. It's not that difficult.
I thought you were going to say RKO. So anyway.
Listen, if they don't give me a JSA book, I'm going to go RKO somebody over there. I'll tell you that much. But listen, The Rock is putting the JSA in a movie. The Rock is one of the biggest entertainers in the world.
Arguably the biggest movie star in the world.
He's probably going to make you guys $1 billion. I just want to point that out. Yeah. And you're not going to put a book out of the JSA? Come on.
That's an excellent point, sir.
Business 101, guys. Let's go. Yeah.
So then the scene cuts to the Teen Titans book.
Yeah.
Or the Teen Titans backdrop, I should say. The Teen Titans story.
And basically it's a bunch of kids that are going to
Titan Towers.
What amounts, Titans Towers to be part of a school, Titans Academy, to be the future generations of Titans. I got to be honest, I like the Titans, but this was my least favorite story piece.
Yeah, not a lot happened. Again, it's just like you said, it was just kind of a gathering of characters.
Because I could see like 45 butterballs coming out of this story.
He's talking about Roundhouse, by the way, for those of you.
Yeah, but my name for him is Butterball. So get on board. Hashtag Butterball. Butterball, greater symbol over, what's the Roundhouse? Yeah. Change the name, DC. Butterball over Roundhouse, yeah. But no, to me, it's like, that one, that one, to me, that book is, I'll wait to see potentially in a trade. Like, I have no rush to go pick that up.
Well, I said before, and again, I think it's important to, admit, your biases. The Teen Titans aren't my favorite characters. So again, that's something that I may pick up later and kind of fill in the gaps on various stories. So
yeah. So right now,
but I'm not in a rush to read that one.
It's a temporary pass on Butterball or us. All right. So because we've kind of skipped over the Superman part, and I know Steven would get upset if we didn't.
Well, no, the Superman is next. It focuses on.
There you go. See, segue.
Yeah, it focuses on Jonathan. Yeah. It focuses on Jonathan Kent.
Yeah.
And the Spectre seems to have some reservations about him. He thinks that he's going to become like a fascist, a tyrant in the future. Yeah.
Why would he think that? Is my.
Well, having seen, I guess, other characters from the multiverse, like maybe Ultraman. He thinks that that's the road that
super people.
That he's going to go down that road.
And think about it. John Kent is a hybrid human Kryptonian.
Yeah.
So we don't know what that could do to a person.
Well, in this story, he's fighting a beast called the Imperial Maw,
which is an interesting thing because it seems like it's new to me, and. Like I think the Superman books are best when they find a balance between the sci-fi aspect of Superman, when they can balance the sci-fi superheroics with the investigative journalist kind of homegrown stuff. So the best Superman stories to me are a good balance between those things. And I think one of the two, based on this story, I could see one of the two Superman books really hammering home this sci-fi aspect, and the other one going more superhero / reporter-driven kind of stories. So, and so I'm just based on this little tease. I think it dispels a lot of the fears that the Spectre had because of how smart John was in dealing with the problem.
Yeah. Well, and what you see here too is that he actually, instead of just destroying this thing, he's able to kind of fly through time, and he sees when the Maw is kind of this new being that when it was newly lost and it was alone and helpless, and he saves it.
Yeah.
And he stops it from being this thing in the future.
Right. So I think he can resonate with characters that are feeling that because at some point he's felt that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting to see, and we'll see it together, where John Kent goes in the main Superman books.
Yeah. And so the next story, we cut to Black Canary and Green Arrow.
Yeah.
They are not in costume. They are not.
No, they're sharpening they're sharpening their arrows. Yeah.
That's an interesting way to put it. They are enjoying a happy time, couple time, shall we say?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And so they get a call from, was it Red Arrow, I believe?
Yeah, Roy, which is
Roy. Yeah,
surprising because last time I checked, he was dead.
yeah,
But not anymore.
yeah. Not anymore. And so he makes his way into this story. Quickly cuts then to Stargirl, and I really like the art in this one.
Oh yeah.
It correlated very well to again what they're trying to do with her here. So
there are some, there are some pairings in comics where the art and the story just like it's a perfect marriage.
right,
This is the case.
yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, no, I would definitely say that too. Sometimes that's not always the case, but it definitely is here.
And I like how it takes advantage of people's awareness of the show and gives you that bare bones similarity that the show and the book can have.
Yeah, I
But
also like the villain that the King Midas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Midas
anyway,
touch.
the Midas touch. Anyway, so
but also,
yeah, so, go ahead,
it
sir.
introduced a new group or an old group. A new old group, if that's how you want to frame it.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is the, who are they?
The Seven Soldiers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, I think they predate the JSA, correct?
Yes, they do.
And we know they're getting a one shot written by Jeff Johns. So
yeah, you see Starman and Vigilante, and the Star Spangled Kid. Yeah, it's very interesting. You also see, of course, Pat as Stripes.
Stripes.
He comes in and saves her, and she says, "Yeah, that's him in the tin can, the big,
Yeah, that felt like the TV show relationship.
Yeah, it really did. Yeah, obviously they're trying to exploit that, which they should, because Stargirl's a great show.
Well, and isn't it convenient that Stargirl featured in a comic, and she has a TV show currently airing?
Right.
You see how that symmetry works, right? So
yeah,
JSA should have the same luxury, is what I'm saying.
Well, and you see her; she's late for school at Blue Valley High School, and the principal is like, "You're late again, Miss Whitmore. What's the deal this time?" And she kind of fumbles around for excuses, and Pat shows up, and he kind of saves her there.
Yeah, which I liked.
Yeah, I like that too.
And then takes her right back out of school to go.
Right. First he says, "Yeah, you forgot your lunch," but then problems arise, and he has to take her right back out because he gets a call.
Right, from this group here. So
yeah,
we'll have to read the one shot to find out where that goes. But I'm intrigued.
Right.
And if this led to an ongoing with Stargirl at the center of it, sign me up.
Mm-hmm.
Written by Jeff Johns, sign me up.
Right. Yeah, I mean, obviously, Jeff Johns, being her creator, he knows how to, write that character.
Yeah.
So
yeah, oh, absolutely.
And, yes, and we're aware that there's a lot of controversy surrounding Jeff Johns right now. We're not going to, get into all that.
No, we're strictly as a comic writer.
Yeah, we're just talking about the story here. Then things go back to Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, basically what I talked about earlier, which just sets up the idea that there's an anti-mask sentiment going on.
Yeah. I really like Batman's the Bat Cycle here, the way the Bat Cycle was rendered. Yeah.
Yes, the art was great. I think it's Jorge Jimenez, I think was the artist, and he's the current artist on the Batman book, so you'll get a lot more of his book art there. But he's great. He's great, and Tynion's doing some great work on the writing. So, and I like what James Tynion is doing because he's introducing new villains as well.
Mm-hmm. Like a Punchline?
Yeah, now he's introducing...
He makes an appearance here.
Yeah. He's going to introduce another one coming up. Mm-hmm. So we'll get to see that on the ground floor. But yes, the Batman Rogues Gallery has great characters. But to keep it enduring, you have to create more at some point. And I'm glad that he's doing that. And there's only so many times you can recycle the Joker.
Well, right. Joker's always interesting, but at the same time, you do have to...
He needs a break at some point.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Him and Batman need some time apart. None of this from the first fight to the last.
But you see, you talked about it earlier, only 17 people survived the explosion. Mahoney is actually really grievously injured in this. He gets a couple of the nurses out of Gotham, but one of his legs is blown off. So yeah,
there's a lot of limbs being.
There's a lot of that going around.
Today is just. And this episode was brought to you by missing limbs, I guess. I don't know, or removed limbs. I don't know. But yeah, it's.
But
No,
the image you talked about, that's here, where the cops like show up and they try to stop Batman, and he's like, "I'm going back in there because there are 17 people alive in there."
and it's just like it put Batman in. Yes, he looks ominous, foreboding, but also heroic. The way he's walking towards that burning building, right? The way he's walking to the burning Arkham. Mm-hmm. It reminded me of the scene in BVS where Bruce Wayne is walking into the disaster as opposed to away from it.
Right.
Which is a very heroic thing to have. So yeah, I can't wait to see more of what that creative team has. Now, Officer Mahoney, well, isn't that a nod to the? Oh no, that's O'Hara. Never mind. I was going to say the 66, but that's Chief O'Hara.
Yeah.
Different.
Yeah. So now that ends with the character you were talking about, and that is Simon Saint.
Yes, he's the basically forefather of the magistrate, which was prevalent in Future State. And
wow, are you right? Very visually eye-grabbing. I mean, wow.
Scarecrow, you mean? Yeah.
Whew.
That's creepy.
So yeah, I mean, I cannot wait to see McFarlane make a figure of that character.
If they keep making these figures, I'm going to go broke, man. Like, stop it.
Yeah. So then the scene cuts to hyperspace, and we see a certain vehicle headed towards Oa. And you will be shocked that this was my favorite story.
Really, Donnie? I mean, I could have swore it was going to be
the Teen Titans.
Yeah, I was like, okay, Donnie's going to love this Teen Titans book. The issue, and I mean, I know there's a Green Lantern in there, but in this book, but he's not going to care about that. Why would Donnie care about the Green Lantern story? What kind of bizarre world are we living on? Yeah.
So there's a funny little epilogue to this too that has nothing to do with actually the story. So what we see is that John Stewart, Simon Baz, and Kelly Quintella are headed to Oa, and part of it is, I guess, the Guardians are concerned about her having the gauntlet that she has, which is good, by the way. I thought that's something that needs to be addressed.
Yes, we talked about that.
Yeah. I hope Jeffrey Thorne can develop that a little bit and kind of answer that character and that part of the character that I think needs to be developed.
Yeah.
I really do like his writing, and I trust him to do that. And so we see that the conversation here, and part of this is, that DC has long talked about, the United Federation of Planets, that being something that happens in the future. Well, it seems like that is now happening.
Yeah.
That we are seeing that now, and how are the Green Lanterns going to fit into this? What is their role in this kind of new reality?
Right.
So
I really liked how this story was framed, in that through Kelly's studying, she was providing some exposition for maybe potentially new Green Lantern fans.
Right.
With some bare bones history, which I thought was cool.
Oh, very much so. She talks about the history of the Malthusians and how they broke up into the controllers and the Guardians and the Zamrons.
So I like the way that was framed, so that if you're new to Green Lantern, you get a little taste, and I'm sure she'll probably explore some of that more as the ongoing kicks up, because to ask a fan to start reading from even Jeff Johns' run, that's a lot of reading.
Yes.
Right.
Well, and Green Lantern has, it has splintered into more than one book at a time. So
right. So I mean, this is a good, having her be the vessel for new readers and to give that exposition, I think is a good way to go.
Yeah.
I also like the commentary from Simon Baz, where he's like, me and Jess made a good team. And so you're getting some of that flavor too.
Yes.
And that era of Green Lantern. So there's a bit of something for everybody, right?
Right. Well, the funny part is on Twitter, I said, I was very relieved because
I saw that.
I hear that they didn't kill my boy. And Jeffrey Thorne's like, I already told you, I'm not going to kill Hal. I'm not going to debilitate him. And I was like, was talking about Kyle because you actually see John or Simon mention Kyle here, and Jeffrey Thorne was like, "Oh, Kyle, my bad." Nobody would tell me what was going to happen to Kyle.
The poor guy. Listen, I feel for the poor guy because he's getting hammered by Hal Jordan fans.
Here, I'm just worried about my boy Kyle.
I was going to jump in, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to let Donnie fight this one on his own because I've had a good relationship with the few tweets I've made to Jeff Thorne, so I don't want to piss him off and then get blocked because I'm actually really looking forward to his run.
Oh, very much. I've spent a lot of money on Jeff Thorne comics lately, so obviously I like
Jeff, we're gonna give your listen. You can count on us giving your run a fair shake.
Definitely.
And if you ever want to help us out and come on our podcast, we'd love to talk to you. So,
by the way, again, if you've never seen Jeff Thorne on a podcast, he's a very interesting guy, even beyond comics. He's lived a very full life. He's done a lot of different entertainment things. So
he's well versed. Yeah.
Look up the things that are attributed to him. It's pretty amazing everything that he's been involved in.
Yeah, so. don't just take social media interactions out of context.
Right.
You know, but which is par for the course in society today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciated that where he was like, "Oh, yeah. Kyle." You know?
I'm staying out of this because
I thought it was hilarious. So anyway, that story ends with the ship that they have. They are approaching Oa. So
yeah, and I like how Kelly sees Oa for the first time.
Which is
what I was talking about with you about how reading other books and then going back to Green Lantern when it comes out.
Yeah.
Will be that wow moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I also like the back view there. You get to see the back of the gauntlet that she's wearing. Like the power pack. Yeah, I thought that was cool.
Do you think that gauntlet is more powerful than the Infinity Stone, the Infinity Gauntlet?
There's some mystery. This is not the Gauntlet of Krona, so I'm still like a little in the dark here about where that came from exactly.
They need to do a crossover between the two gauntlets, so then we can cover it, and I can end the show with from the first gauntlet to the last.
To the last, okay. Yeah, I mean, she got it from this dying alien who basically told her, use it and then pass it along. So we still don't know a lot about that gauntlet.
Dying aliens like to give us their crap and expect us to know what to do with it. The hell do you want me to do with this thing? But then we get another story with the Flash.
Two Flashes actually. Yeah.
Flash is,
yeah. And we usually
Flash Eye or Flash. Which is it?
But we see
it's Flash Eye. Which?
That's a good. No, I think it's Flashes. Okay. Flash Eye.
Nobody gets flashed in the book though. Thank God.
Yeah, and in fact, there's two. And you and I, we usually do a podcast called "A Flash of Two Mics." So
you don't say it. Where can you find this podcast?
You can find that on iTunes and Podbean.
All right, good.
Shameless plug. All right.
You're gonna love when the book set us up for our plugs.
Right. So actually, this one again, it features both Barry and Wally.
Yes.
And you also see, was it Calvin Ellis, the Earth 23 Superman?
Yes, now.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Can I put my tinfoil hat?
Yes. Okay.
So, imagine my tinfoil hat on, folks, with my disappearing hands.
Yes.
But we just recently got the announcement of a Superman film, right? Written by Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Right.
And now that I know how to pronounce his name, I like saying it. So every once in a while I'll say it. But have you noticed the last few days on Twitter, DC's really kind of pushing to learn about Calvin Ellis, and now he's featured in this story. I wonder, Donnie, do you think that's by design? Because I think Calvin Ellis is going to be the Superman of that film, personally.
It could be. What I've read of President Superman Calvin Ellis is very interesting. I can't say I've read a lot about him, but yeah.
He's only been in for sure 2 issues, but now 3 with this. But I hope they do more with the character, and it seems like they will. Because if you're going to set people up for him being in a movie, you got to get some more exposure out there. So hopefully that's the case. But yeah, continue. So Barry is interacting with Calvin Ellis.
First he runs past President Superman, which is Calvin Ellis, and he has this conversation with Wally, and he says that he's been offered a place on the Justice Incarnate where he's going to like map this new omniverse that has come about after the death metal event.
Yes.
And of course, Wally says, "Well, who's going to be the Flash in Justice League?" And of course, Barry's like, "It's going to be you." You know.
Yes. Yes.
So we've been down that road before, and you and I both liked that run.
Yeah,
so.
I'm over the moon. Look, I love Barry. I do.
Likewise. Yeah.
But when I got into Justice League and when I came back to DC, a large part of my comeback was from the DC animated universe. Mm-hmm. And the Flash in that universe was Wally. And then when I picked up my first Flash comic, the Flash was Wally. So for me to see Wally back, take my money, DC. It kind of spoils the solo Flash book because now we know who's taking over. But I digress. I'm still going to read it.
Yeah, I got the alternate cover. Can you see that well enough?
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, I got the alternate cover. That's a second printing.
So. Which Flash is that though? Oh, it's Future State Flash.
Yeah, it's Future State.
It's the one from Justice League. Okay. Yeah. All right, got it.
And yeah, I also picked up. Even though this is not my favorite look for John Stewart, I guess it's Green Lantern, so I had to pick it up.
Oh, so. I mean, really? Yeah. Again, you're shocking me today with all these Green Lantern revelations, Donnie. That you're a fan of Green Lantern. I mean, who knew? Who knew? But no, I'm over the moon. Like I can't. Like we pretty much came to the end of Future State. Well, the epilogue. Let's talk about the epilogue first.
Well, we cut back to Wonder Woman and the Spectre, and again, we said at the beginning of this that she was being offered a spot in the Quintessence. Yeah, she's being offered a spot in the Quintessence, and she refuses it though at the very end.
She says, and we see her. Jose.
Yeah, she kind of reverts to her a more classic looking type of Wonder Woman costume, and she kind of rejoins the reality of what Infinite Frontier is going to be.
Yeah, because she wants to be part of this new universe, not watching it.
Yeah, she says, and now I find myself on a different shore, and it's time to set sail into the Infinite Frontier. And the last image is all of these heroes kind of coming at you from that point of view, and it's really beautiful.
And it's my favorite page of the Green Lantern story, because Dexter Soy can draw the phone book, and I buy it, and I buy my multiple copies of it. Mm-hmm. That's how good his art is. But aside from Dexter Soy's work, I mean, let's be honest. The art in every page of this book was phenomenal.
Like I said, there were a couple that
but the reveal in the epilogue made me look past the so-so art.
Whoa! I tell you, the what happens at the end is pretty amazing, though, because we see, and spoiler here, if you don't want a big spoiler, we're about to give it to you in 3, 2, 1. Several members of the Quintessence are killed, including apparently the Spectre and Ganthet are killed by Darkseid.
Right. So Darkseid is back.
Yeah, and looking, very much powered up. I mean,
he looks great. I will say, I wasn't a fan of the overall art of those pages, but when it came to seeing Darkseid,
Yeah.
And Donnie, isn't it amazing how we're going to get Darkseid in live action in a couple of weeks, and now he's back in the... It's almost as if they're going to tee up for some sort of New Gods movie. I mean, shocking how there's... Are you telling me there could be corporate synergy at work here, Donnie?
Well, yeah, exactly. And this gives you a huge list of all these comics that are being, relaunched in some manner over the next few months.
He's just giving you a list of saying, look, here's how we're going to take your money.
Right, exactly. This is how we're going to pick, all the money out of your wallet.
And I'm saying, here, take it all. Well, except for the Teen Titans Academy, but everything, yeah. But no, Donnie, based on, the solicitations already had me intrigued. Mm-hmm. But now reading this, my excitement for comic books, and DC specifically here, is hitting new levels again. Because there are so many books I'm looking forward to.
Likewise.
Um,
I bet you know, Harley Quinn #1 and Joker #1, I bet both of those sell extremely well.
yeah, and I mean, we'll check out Joker #1, and we'll probably do a review on one of these shows in the Batman for the Batman segment. But you know, me being the Batman fan that I am, of course I'm going to check out Joker. Like, if you tell me there's a Joker book coming, Adam's going to check out the Joker book. Like, it's just a foregone conclusion. But the fact that, you know, now I'm looking at, I'm reinvigorating, I'm like this Infinite Frontier has reminded me why I'm also a Flash fan. It's reminded me why I love Green Lantern. It's reinvigorating, and it's being a reminder of why I love these characters beyond my top two guys, right?
Right.
So, and again, I may not be getting Kyle right now, but I'm getting Wally.
Right. At least Kyle's not dead. We know that now.
Yeah, and so there's so much, like, I'm even going to check out the first couple of issues of Wonder Woman to see what's going on there. Like,
oh, likewise, yeah.
There are books that I normally wouldn't have, like, you know, I read Wonder Woman as like a trade buyer kind of thing. Now I'm going to check out the first couple of issues monthly for a bit just to see, you know. I'm going to give it one look. I'm going to try, again, with the exception of, Teen Titans Academy. and maybe Swamp Thing, because the Future State one didn't really appeal to me. I'm going to give a lot of titles that I was trade reading at least one story arc to impress me. Like, I'll come on board for a story arc. And if you impress me, I'll keep buying you. If not, I'll wait for the trades.
Yeah.
But I'm giving a lot more titles a chance now.
Right. And I'll say this too. Infinite Frontier #0, I absolutely loved it. It's one of the best comics I've read in the last couple of years.
Oh,
amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's give it an overall rating.
Overall rating of 5 and 5+. I mean, they're, you know, again, very different art styles. I mean, you had a number of them, but the art, just because there was so much packed into this issue,
right,
so amazing. I absolutely loved it. It was like going through, you know, the years of DC. For a long time,
you know what was cool though? It was a 60-some-odd page book, but it didn't feel like a long, drawn-out read.
Oh no, it went by so quickly. There were so many things happening. It was very pleasant experience.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, these are exciting times. I think Future State set the table. I think Infinite Frontier gave us a little bit of an appetizer.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're fixing to get the main courses.
Yeah.
And
for somebody who's been watching and, you know, been involved in the DC universe since, you know, that background that you have right there, since I was watching that on Super Friends, this was very, very satisfying.
Isn't this a great time to be starting a overall DC Comics regular show once a month?
It's so much fun. I enjoy this so much. You have no idea. So
this was my ploy to get you reading Batman comics more regularly.
Okay.
So my trick worked. See, I'm bringing them over to the darkness of Gotham, folks. Slowly but surely, you just watch.
No, hey, you know, I love you. The only reason I don't.
I'm playing games. You know, I'm playing games.
If there's any comic out there that I'm not reading, it's only because I can't afford them all.
Right. Yeah. This is true. But we're going to be covering as much of these comics as humanly possible to bring you our thoughts. We're going to do segmented shows. So going forward, we're going to have a Batman Superman show where you get the main Batman titles, the main Superman titles, and the occasional like special like Superman Red and Blue. We'll check that out. We'll check out Joker as Donnie mentioned. And then we're going to do Flash and Green Lantern together because we like that pairing.
Yes, we do.
So we're going to pair those two together. And we'll probably throw in, you know, on lighter weeks, we'll throw in the Justice League book in that show too. And, you know, we'll give Wonder Woman a go and see how that's like, at least for a couple of issues. So we're going to try and give you our thoughts on different flavors of DC. And then but we're going to cover. We're going to make the main focus is we're going to have you covered in terms of the main leaguers,
Right.
And you're still going to get our podcast where we go to the back issues of Green Lantern, through Emerald Echo, and through the Flash and the Flash of Two Mikes. But we wanted to bring you a show that keeps you. While it's great to look back and to relive those moments, we also want to push the genre forward and talk about what's actually happening right now. And this show will give you a chance. And we'll tell you what we think. And, I mean, we're not going to say, if we don't like a book, we're not going to tell you don't buy it. We'll encourage you. All we're doing is, one way or another, giving our perspective. Mm-hmm. If there's a character you love, even though we may not be hot on a book, but if you love that character, you don't have to. Our word is not the final say. It's just what we think.
Right. That's a good way to phrase it. Yeah.
If you love a character, at the end of the day, and we maybe don't in a particular book, it's okay. Check that character out. So just take our opinions as they are, opinions.
Yes.
From two fans who love these books.
We are people who read comics every day. We love this genre. We're here to be ambassadors for the comic book industry. Yes, we don't love everything, and we may tell you that there are things we don't like, but that doesn't mean it's not worthwhile for you. You may have opinions very different from us.
You will never hear me say, "Don't buy this book." I will never utter those words. I promise you. I will never steer you in that direction. So, when you're listening to this show, even if you hear us say some negative complaints about a certain run or a certain issue, we're not going to do it in a way that's disparaging to who could
maybe be. Again, neither one of us are huge Teen Titans fans, but if you're into the Teen Titans, by all means, buy those books.
If eventually we try the trade, there's a chance that we could like it.
Yeah. I mean, there was a point in a couple of different times when Kyle, had the Teen Titans in his run, Volume 3 of Green Lantern, and I like that. So
so there's always a chance, right?
Right.
So, but rest assured that your favorite character will not be trampled on by us, other than to say either we like the book or we don't. But we're not going to go on a hate campaign.
No.
On your favorite character. So
even if it's Nort,
you said some nice things about Nort. So this, and listen.
See? Yeah.
All you have to do is listen to me say this, and this should give you the indication that I am as unbiased as I can be. Everybody who knows me via podcasting or in real life or has had any extended conversation with me knows that my personal opinion is that I cannot stand Batman and Robin, the movie. However, if there was a young child who their first exposure to Batman was that film, and regardless of its flaws, they still love it, and that made them a Batman fan, then fantastic for them. I am happy. I'm happy to have another Batman and DC fan into the fold, whether I like what he likes or not, or she, or not. So
see, I couldn't agree more. Agree more. Yeah.
That's what you're going to get from me. I may make jokes about George Clooney and the nipples, but at the end of the day, if that's what you like, go for it. Good for you. So that's our promise to you: is we're going to cover these books. We're going to tell you what we like. If we're not going to sugarcoat, if there's something we don't like, we're going to say it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the decision to pick these books up are yours. What we will say in closing is that what we really want you to do is, be it digitally or physically, is to support the comic book industry. That's the aim of this show. To give
indeed.
A voice, to give exposure to the beloved books that house our favorite characters and tell our favorite stories. And so that's what we're going to do. And in closing, we hope you enjoyed the show. There are going to be many more to come. And I will say that clearly, because there's going to be an Infinite Frontier miniseries in the summer that was announced. So it's pretty clear that the Infinite Frontier era of DC is forever. From the first frontier to the last. So long, everybody.
So long, everybody.